The Donghua begins by showing two boys fighting with wooden swords. The boy with short hair was called Zhang Xiaofan and the boy with slightly long hair was named Lin Jingyu. Even though Xiaofan had challenged Jingyu many times, he had never once won against Jingyu. This was because Xiaofan was a weak and stupid boy, while Jingyu was a smart boy and mastered martial skills well. Their battle moved to a temple. Even though he never won, Xiaofan's determination was never extinguished. It didn't even feel like it was getting late. But for some reason, Jingyu looked so eager to kill Xiaofan, as if he was possessed by something, which made his friends afraid, and he decided to leave him. Suddenly, an old monk named Puqi appeared who woke Jingyu up. Jingyu apologized to Xiaofan for going too far against him. After that, Puqi seemed to have predicted what had happened to them, making Jingyu uncomfortable. Then, Jingyu immediately pulled Xiaofan away from the temple. The scene then moves, showing Xiaofan who gets an assignment from his mother to deliver something. However, the weather outside was so dark, as if there was going to be a storm, and at the same time, a black power appeared in the village. On the other hand, Puqi felt that the black power was targeting Jingyu who happened to be outside the house. He immediately saved Jingyu from the attack of the black power. After that, the black power transformed into a masked and hooded man and directly attacked Puqi. They then competed for strength, but it seemed that the masked man could corner Puqi. The masked man's goal turned out to be to seize an object that had been protected by Puqi. But Puqi obviously wouldn't want to give it to the masked man. They continued to fight and Xiaofan watched the fight from a distance. Puqi looks so formidable with his moves that he can impress the masked man. According to the masked man, the ability of Puqi is the distinctive ability of the Tianyin Temple. After that, the masked man took out his sword and unleashed the Divine Thunder technique. This made Puqi know the masked man's identity, who turned out to be from the Qingyunmen sect. The clash of forces between the masked man and Puqi caused a huge blast of wind in the surrounding area, causing Xiaofan to bounce and faint. But then, the masked man decided to withdraw because he could not attend to the Buddhist techniques of Puqi. The scene then shows Puqi leaning Xiaofan and Jingyu on a large tree trunk. He actually already realized that he was going to die. He appears to have taken a pill that could delay his death for 3 days. For that, he did not want to waste a little time passing on his power. Incidentally, Xiaofan, who was injured from being hit by the power of the divine sword, was immediately healed by Puqi. Then Puqi decided to pass all his power on to Xiaofan because he felt that Xiaofan was the child who was foretold by the Buddha. After that, Puqi offered Xiaofan training to become strong. He then told Xiaofan that the practice should not be known to anyone, including Xiaofan's own family. Xiaofan had to practice every day at midnight and the techniques he learned later on should not be used for anything unless he was in danger. Xiaofan seemed to immediately agree to Puqi's request. However, the conditions Xiaofan had to fulfill did not end there. Puqi then advised that Xiaofan should not reveal his identity to anyone, and he also gave a pearl to him, which he was not allowed to tell anyone about. He also had to bury the pearl in the most hidden place to be safe. After conveying these things, Xiaofan knelt down and called Puqi his teacher. Moments later, the weather had turned clear and Jingyu regained consciousness. Jingyu seemed to walk towards the temple, found Xiaofan sleeping in the temple, and woke him up. After Xiaofan woke up, he immediately took Jingyu home without telling him what had happened last night. When Xiaofan and Jingyu arrived at the village, the atmosphere of the village seemed different because it looked so lonely. There was only one man called Uncle Wang, who looked very shocked and stressed. Seeing Uncle Wang's condition, Xiaofan decided to go around the village to find out. However, he was shown a gruesome sight as all the villagers died horribly. He screamed in fear and then fainted again. The scene then shows Xiaofan looking for his parents' whereabouts. However, many evil spirits appeared to block him. After that, Xiaofan suddenly woke up and realized that his destroyed village was just a dream. He then left the house and found Jingyu crying alone. Jingyu said that what happened to their village was true, and their parents were both dead too. Shortly after, a man named Yichai appeared and took the two of them away to Qingyu sect. Yichai was the one sent by the Puqi. The scene then shows Xiaofan and Jingyu walking, following Yichai on the glowing bridge to the temple of Qingyunmen sect. When they arrived at the gate, they were surprised by the appearance of an ancient dragon-like divine being named Lingzun. At first, Lingzun was about to attack them, but Yichai explained that Xiaofan and Yungi were specially summoned by the teacher. Lingzun immediately calmed down after hearing that, then left the three of them. Yichai then explained that Lingzun had been tamed thousands of years ago and had awakened his intelligence, so Lingzun couldn't attack humans just like that. But Xiaofan felt that Lingzun's attitude just now might have something to do with the pearl he got from Puqi. Arriving inside the temple of Qingyunmen, 7 people were sitting around the central room. There, Yichai immediately reported to them. He said that Kaomiyao village was destroyed by evil forces and only 3 people survived, namely Xiaofan, Jingyu and Uncle Wang. Of those 7 people, 1 man was sitting in the center named Lu Xueqi, the leader of Qingyunmen sect. Lu Xueqi then asked what happened to Jingyu and Xiaofan chronologically. However, only Jingyu told what happened to him, while Xiaofan didn't say anything because he remembered the message from his teacher. In addition, the scene seemed to introduce the 7 higher-ups of the Qingyunmen sect. One was Kang Song from the Dragon Peak, the second was Tian Bui from the Great Bamboo Peak, the third was Shui Yu from the Lit Bamboo Peak, the fourth was Zhang Xiaofan from the Wind Breeze Peak, the fifth was Shang Jinglang from the Sunrise Peak. The last one was Master Tianyun from the Peak of the Sunset. There appears to be a debate between Kang Song and Tian Bui over fighting over Jingyu to be appointed as their disciple. They both felt that Jingyu could be a potential disciple within the pinnacle they led. Not wanting the commotion to continue, Dao Xuan decided that Jingyu would join Kang Song at the top of the dragon. Meanwhile, Xiaofan will follow Tian Bui to the top of the Great Bamboo. Dao Xuan's decision was approved by the 7 higher-ups of Qingyunmen sect. The scene then shows Xiaofan and Jingyu who are about to part because they are going to different peaks. Jingyu was escorted by Kong Sang directly, while Xiaofan was escorted by one of the Great Bamboo's disciples named Song Darren. Before leaving, Jingyu bid farewell to Xiaofan and advised him to take good care of himself. It had not even been a day since Xiaofan had been in the temple of the Great Bamboo. He looked uncomfortable because of the other disciples' attitude towards him. Xiaofan then tried to rebel against the students who were joking with him, but suddenly a girl appeared to protect him. The girl's name is Ling and she is Tian Bui's daughter. After that, Tian Bui came with his wife and Song Darren. Song Darren continued to introduce the senior disciples to Xiaofan. They were Zheng Dali, Lu Daxin, He Dajai, Wu Daiyi and lastly, Du Bishu. After that, Song Darren told Xiaofan to serve drinks to Tian Bui and his wife as a form of gratitude for being appointed as a peak disciple of the Great Bamboo. There, it appears that Tian Bui is still not happy with Dao Xuan's decision to give Xiaofan to him. During dinner, Tian Bui told Song Darren to take care of Xiaofan, then he left with his wife. There, Ling looked very pleased with Xiaofan's arrival at the peak of the Great Bamboo. Xiaofan realized that the disciples at the Great Bamboo, who only numbered 6, were loyal disciples, and he felt that Song Darren and the other disciples were like his own siblings. The scene then changed, and Xiaofan was seen holding a pearl as he remembered his teacher's message to practice every day at midnight without anyone knowing. Without further ado, he started cultivating as Pu Qi taught him. He sat cross-legged and closed his eyes. Slowly a light appeared around him. The next day, Xiaofan went around the temple of the Great Bamboo and found a place called the Silence Hall. He also met Ling who introduced her pet dog, Dawan, who could reach 100 years of age. There, Ling explained to Xiaofan that he should call her his senior sister. Then, Song Darren appeared and gave Xiaofan the task of being a new student. Ling who heard this wanted to accompany Xiaofan. The scene then shows Song Darren, Xiaofan and Ling walking in the bamboo forest. Song Darren then explained the rules at the peak of the Great Bamboo, which every new disciple at the Great Bamboo had to cut a bamboo every day, but since Xiaofan was young, then he only had to cut 1 bamboo for 3 months. Ling then set an example for Xiaofan to chop bamboo properly, but it turned out that Xiaofan had difficulty cutting the bamboo in the Great Bamboo. As a beginner, he had to study harder to be able to cut bamboo quickly, although Xiaofan often failed, but he still enthusiastically lived his days at the peak of the Great Bamboo. Song Darren had taught Xiaofan various exercises, and he kept repeating the exercises time after time. Not only did he get a new technique, but Xiaofan also got a classmate who felt like his new family. Over time, Xiaofan has grown into a handsome teenage boy. He also seems to be able to cut bamboo quickly using the sword techniques he has learned. Ling is also seen who is so beautiful and always happy to spend her days with him. The scene then shows Xiaofan practicing spiritual agility with his fellow masters. There, he was shown to have not been able to develop his cultivation and ended up losing to his fellow masters. He felt hopeless because he always failed despite using various training methods. He also felt bad for Song Darren and the others for always being so troublesome. However, Xiaofan's brothers and sisters encouraged him to never give up. When his brothers left while talking about the Great Bamboo's philosophy, Xiaofan thought that he should be like a bamboo stick that is calm and stable. Hearing this, he immediately started cultivating without paying attention to anything that bothered him. At the same time, Tian Bui appeared behind him and saw his spiritual aura radiate. Seeing Xiaofan, who managed to absorb the spiritual aura and stimulate the 36 meridians directly, made Song Darren and the others rush to meet him. They seemed happy that Xiaofan had broken through the first stage of the Enlightenment Gate. However, Tian Bui was still as indifferent to Xiaofan as before. He only warned him not to forget his obligation to be a chef at the Temple of the Great Bamboo. The scene then moves and shows Xiaofan who is doing his activities chopping bamboo, but someone bullied him by throwing stones at him many times. Disturbed, Xiaofan was looking for the culprit who bullied him, and the culprit turned out to be a monkey. On the other hand, Jingyu was also a teenager and was one of the most respected in the Temple of the Dragon because of his talent. Unlike Xiaofan, Jingyu's cultivation was at the 6th level Mystic Realm, which was directly supervised by the Dragon's Peak leader, Kang Song. Not long after, a senior named Fang Kao took Jingyu to a fight out of jealousy of his talent. But then, a senior fleet named Qi stopped the fight. Qi regrets Fang Keo's loss to Jingyu. Meanwhile, their teacher, Kang Song, only watched from afar. The scene returned to Xiaofan, who was sitting alone with Ling Er. They deliberately do not do activities because of interference from the naughty monkeys. There, Ling Er told Xiaofan not to be suspicious of her father because she was sure that her father had feelings for him. Not long after, the naughty monkey appeared and disturbed them both. Ling Er, who was annoyed, immediately hunted the monkey to be given a merciless punishment. Because the monkey was very agile and repeatedly teased Ling Er, she became even more annoyed and irritated. Then, while chasing the naughty monkey, Ling Er and the monkey fell into the abyss. Xiaofan immediately descended into the abyss to look for Ling Er. At the same time, suddenly, he felt a pressure in his chest from the pulsing pearl, but he ignored that and continued to descend to find Ling Er's whereabouts. Xiaofan then found Ling Er by the lake, but when he was about to approach, he fainted and realized that the lake contained a substance that could make people faint. But then, he seemed to get a push from the pearl in his chest so he could save Ling Er. Not only Ling Er, but he also moved to save the mischievous monkey from the lakeside. Suddenly, the pearl in Xiaofan's chest floated out of his shirt towards the middle of the lake. He then caught the floating pearl and was dragged into the lake instead. The pearl continued to move into the whirlpool, whose center was a wooden stick. Slowly, the wooden stick and red pearl rose and circled around Xiaofan's body. Slowly, the two objects fused in front of him and he could feel a bond between the two objects. But Xiaofan fainted and drowned due to the explosion of aura from the two objects and faintly saw the shadow of a person above the lake. The scene then shows Xiaofan, who managed to survive and come to his senses. Beside his bed was Mrs. Su, Ling Er's mother, who looked worried. Tian Bui also came and scolded Xiaofan for not being able to take care of a monkey. Mrs. Su immediately calmed her husband down and then told Xiaofan to continue to rest. Then, Mrs. Su and Tian Bui went out of Xiaofan's room, where she said something was wrong while saving Xiaofan and Ling Er. But Tian Bui thought the accident was due to Xiaofan's incompetence. The scene then shows the monkey, who panicked because he was being chased by Ling Er. The monkey entered Xiaofan's room carrying a wooden stick fused with Xiaofan's pearl. But then the naughty monkey ran away again and Xiaofan helped Ling Er to chase after it. Unexpectedly, Xiaofan actually saved the monkey and asked for permission to keep it. Ling Er then allowed it as long as Xiaofan was willing to take responsibility. Xiaofan then gave the monkey a name, Lu Xueqi. As usual, Xiaofan is practicing in the middle of the night and feels his cultivation is improving since he broke through the Stage 1 Enlightenment Gate. On the other hand, we are shown Jingyu, who looks annoyed because he failed so many times to destroy the boulder in his practice. Kang Song then reprimands Jingyu for training in such a hurry. He explained that advanced sword techniques result from a clear mind. After that, Kang Song suddenly shocked Jingyu by plunging into the abyss. However, he returned and floated with the dragon blade in his hand. Apparently, Kang Song wanted to inherit the dragon blade to Jingyu, but he wanted to see if Jingyu's capacity was worthy of inheriting the sword. Jingyu then proved his worth and even managed to awaken the power of the dragon blade, leaving Kang Song astonished. Kang Song then intends to teach the highest sword technique in Qingyu sect, namely the Divine Thunder technique, which is none other than the power that destroyed Jingyu's village back then. Seeing this, Jingyu immediately felt dizzy and unconscious. The scene changes and shows Xiaofan, who is talking to Daohong and Lu Xueqi, that he will give Ling Er a gift, namely a bamboo flute. Unfortunately, Ling Er had heard of this and forced Xiaofan to take out the gift, but Xiaofan was still bashful. Ling Er also tried to snatch the gift and caused it to fall into the pot used to boil water. Song Darren then appears and tells Ling Er that a disciple from the Peak of the Dragon is coming to visit and Ling Er should welcome him. Xiaofan, who heard this, decided to come along, thinking that among the students, there might be his childhood friend, Jingyu. On the other hand, the peak disciples of the dragon who had arrived were Qi and Jingyu, who were entertained by Tian Bui and his wife. They conveyed news from the leader of Qingyu sect about a meeting between the 7 divisions to commemorate the 100th anniversary of the founding of the Qingyu sect. In the commemoration, each division initially only needed to send 1 student to compete. But now the number was increased to 9 disciples, which meant that Tian Bui had to send all his disciples. Finally, Tian Bui was forced to agree to the decision. After that, the dragons and the Great Bamboo's disciples were seen chatting with each other. Qi was talking to Ling Er, while Jingyu was talking to his little best friend, Xiaofan. Xiaofan and Jingyu talked about their village and they still couldn't find the culprit who destroyed their village. Besides, the two of them decided to fight like they did when they were kids to reminisce. The 99th battle between Xiaofan and Jingyu began. But then, Ling Er interrupted the fight. Due to a misunderstanding, Ling Er attacked Jingyu. Ling Er looked so serious in attacking Jingyu that it made Jingyu get emotional and attack her with the dragon blade without a second thought. Meanwhile, Xiaofan could not separate the two of them because their cultivation levels were higher than his. Luckily, Qi managed to separate the two of them in time. Qi immediately told Jingyu to apologize. Xiaofan then explained that he was just playing around. As a result, he was also scolded by Tian Bui. After that, Qi was seen apologizing to Ling Er in private and giving a gift to her. The gift turned out to be a pearl that Qi got when fighting the demon sect. Finally, Ling Er received Qi's gift, which made Xiu Fan, who saw it, feel jealous. Jingyu encouraged Xiu Fan and advised him to be more assertive. He went on to say that Xiu Fan should participate in the match between the 7 divisions and give his best on behalf of their village. Then, Jingyu said goodbye to Xiu Fan to return to the top of the dragon. The day had turned to night and showed Xiu Fan despairing because he felt that his gift to Ling Er was not worth the gift that Qi had given her. But suddenly, Ling Er appeared from the window and startled Xiu Fan. She apparently wanted to talk about a secret to him. Ling Er was apparently still annoyed at Jingyu for bullying him. Even though Xiu Fan had explained, Ling Er still didn't change her mind and instead gave him a practice note. Xiu Fan looked surprised when he discovered it was a practice record for mastering the highest mystical realm to the 3rd level. Xiu Fan seemed to tremble because Tian Bui had forbidden him to practice. However, Ling Er still forced him and asked him not to tell anyone. Ling Er then talked about Qi and also showed off the gift that he gave in front of Xiu Fan. After that, Ling Er left from there and asked Xiu Fan to train immediately. Although initially hesitant, Xiu Fan began to read and understand the note's contents. In fact, the practice method in the notes was not difficult for him because the method was the same as Pu Qi's. He immediately put into practice what he had read from the note without waiting for long. Not long after, there was a loud noise not far from where Xiu Fan was practicing. He then caught his senior, Du Bishu, who was apparently training his strength. He was then surprised because Du Bishu had been away for so many years and had now returned. Du Bishu then showed his new power, the Divine Dice, which was made from the core of a pearl tree that was 1,000 years old. It was solely Du Bishu doing to compete in the match between the 7 divisions. Xiu Fan then felt a little suspicious. How could Du Bishu know the match between the 7 divisions when he had been away from the Temple of the Great Bamboo for so many years? But the scene moved again and showed Jingyu, who became the attention of the top disciples of the dragon. Jingyu seemed to be training with the dragon blade, making Qi feel a little competitive. Kang Song then warned Jingyu not to be complacent. He also commemorates his students who will participate in the 7-division competition. Kang Song hoped that his disciples would not disappoint the Peak of the Dragon because, in the history of Qingyu sect, the Peak of the Dragon has always been the best. The scene then moves to show Dao Xuan interacting with the ancestral temple's inhabitants. There, the two of them seem to be arguing. The ancestral temple dwellers reminded Dao Xuan not to always feel self-righteous, but Dao Xuan got angry and then left. The long-awaited day has arrived. The Great Bamboo Peak disciples seemed to have gathered and were about to leave. Apparently, they were still waiting for Xiu Fan, who was preparing their provisions. But when Xiu Fan came, Ling Er was surprised because he did not carry any weapons and instead carried a black stick. Ling Er then gave Xiu Fan a sword so that he could fight to the fullest. Tian Bui also gave instructions before leaving and ordered Xiu Fan to go with Song Darren. Xiu Fan was amazed when he arrived at the meeting place of the 7 divisions because the place was very beautiful, especially since the atmosphere was so crowded with students from the other 6 divisions. But what attracted the most attention were the disciples from the Peak of the Little Bamboo, because the Little Bamboo's disciples were mostly beautiful women. Meanwhile, in the temple of the Qingyu sect, the higher-ups held a meeting regarding their feud with the demonic doctrine. The higher-ups felt that the demonic teachings in the Wangfu cave still had the potential to revive. Dao Xuan decided to attack the demon teaching's blood refining hall first, as he was afraid of the possibility of a sudden attack. To investigate the Wangfu cave, Dao Xuan had the idea of uniting the Fenshang Valley and Tianyin Temple disciple and sending disciples from each division within the Qingyu sect to investigate. However, only the top 4 students will be selected for the match between the 7 divisions. The scene then shows Song Darren being met by Wen, one of the female disciples from the top of the Little Bamboo. Apparently, Song Darren had missed Wen since the last meeting, so he looked awkward when he met Wen and was laughed at by his other college brothers. Afterward came the group of disciples from the Peak of the Dragon led by Qi. Qi saw Ling Er and Wen, then greeted the 2 girls warmly. This time, it was Ling Er who was flustered by Qi, while Xiu Fan also greeted Jingyu, who kept encouraging him. On the other hand, Xiu Hui was being chased by one of the male disciples from the Peak of the Wind Breeze. But the monkey finally managed to find Xiu Fan and immediately climbed onto his back to take cover from the disciple's pursuit. It turned out that the disciple was attracted to Xiu Hui because the monkey was a 3-eyed monkey, a very rare spirit beast. The disciple was also surprised at Xiu Hui because, in his history, there was no 3-eyed monkey that humans could tame. Shortly after, the match between the 7 divisions began. Dao Ziyan seemed to give the opening remarks for the event. There, the disciple from the Peak of the Wind Breeze was still trying to interact with Xiu Hui. Apparently, he was still curious as to what Xiu Hui's third eye looked like, but the monkey ignored him. Finally, the disciple introduced himself as Shu Shu to Xiu Fan. Shortly after, the sacrificial sword event began as a start to the main event. But suddenly, Xiu Fan's wooden stick gave off a red glow. It caused Ling Zun to come to the venue and instantly made everyone panic. Luckily, Dao Xuan could stop Ling Zun and make Ling Zun return to his place. The panicked disciples then cheered joyfully, thinking that Ling Zun's arrival was also part of the event. Kang Song then announced the prize that the winner of the match would receive. The gift was a hexagonal mirror relic from the 10th generation Qingyu sect, named Fangzi. The mirror has the power to reflect all kinds of attacks. After announcing the prizes, Kang Song continued tossing the contestants' numbers at the disciples for them to pick up. Then, he called the lottery numbers alternately between the first and the last to face each other and continued like that. Kang Song also asked which student got the lottery number 1, then Xiaofan replied that he got it. Tian Bui then looked happy. After all, Xiaofan immediately passed to the next round because none of the students got the lottery number 64, which is the last number. Kang Song continued to mention the lottery numbers and match after the match began. Then came the match between Ling and a disciple from the top of the sun named Shen Tiandu. Song Darren then warned Ling to be vigilant because her current opponent had once defeated a master. Ling and Shen began to show strength, presenting a match between the cane technique against the stone technique. However, Xiaofan did not focus on watching the match because Shu Shu kept trying to persuade him to sell Xiu Hui. Ling was cornered when she was confined by Shen's stones. But then a strange thing happened. The stones that bound Ling were instantly shattered. The reason was because of the power of Xiaofan's wooden stick. After that, Ling immediately gave a counterattack and managed to corner Shen. When Xiaofan thought he had interfered in Ling match, his focus was again divided because Shu Shu was bothering him again. But this time, Shu Shu offered Xiaofan the Matchless Book. Matchless Book is a book that contains pornographic images that instantly make Xiaofan uncomfortable. On the other hand, Ling managed to win over Shen. She then asked Xiaofan's opinion about the match, but Ling was disappointed because Xiaofan couldn't make up his mind because of being interrupted by Shu Shu. The next match began, and all eyes were on the female student competing this time, because that person had neither strength nor beauty. That disciple was Lu Xueqi, otherwise known as Lu. She was the prettiest disciple from the peak of the little bamboo, and the opponent Lu was facing was Fang Kao, who was one of the seniors at the peak of the dragon. Just before the fight started, Lu was seen asking for permission from Shui Yu, the top leader of the little bamboo. Lu then gave Fang Kao a chance to attack first, and their fight began. Fang Kao seemed to attack first as Lu asked. However, all of Fang Kao's attacks were dodged by Lu. In fact, Lu looked calm and had yet to counterattack Fang Kao. Lu's movements looked efficient but still graceful at the same time. Fang Kao looked annoyed with Lu, who seemed to be looking down on him. But Lu finally started to fight back and instantly brought Fang Kao to his knees easily. Xiaofan then looked amazed to see the match because there was a beautiful girl who had great strength. On the other hand, Kang Song did not accept Shui Yu because her disciple had overreacted. Unlike Kang Song, Tian Bui praised Lu's greatness, especially since she inherited a sword from Shui Yu, the Tianchen sword. Meanwhile, Xiaofan woke up from his admiration when Shu Shu said Lu was prettier than Ling. The scene then shows that it is already evening and all the opening matches have been held. Xiaofan looked at the round board that contained the names of the students who qualified for the next match, and his name was also on it. Xiaofan then tried to calm himself down for tomorrow's match by walking around the area at night. Unexpectedly, he saw Ling and Qi, who were alone and chatting like lovers. This clearly broke his heart, especially because he felt guilty all this time. He had never made Ling happy and smile, just like what Qi had done for her. The next day, Xiaofan had his battle against a disciple from the top of the sun named Yuhong. There, Xiaofan looked cornered and struggled against Yuhong, who was a senior disciple. Plus, the pain in his heart seeing Ling and Qi made him unable to focus. Yuhong then repeatedly broke Xiaofan's sword and knocked him down. Finally, Xiaofan grabbed his wooden stick to fight Yuhong, but Yuhong seemed to be laughing at his wooden stick. In fact, he also underestimated the peak of the great bamboo because their weapons weren't that scary. Starting from cloth, dice, and now wooden sticks. Xiaofan was clearly angry at Yuhong's insults, and his anger exploded when he saw Ling and Qi alone. He then advanced to attack Yuhong and this time was able to provide fierce resistance to Yuhong. At one point in the fight, Xiaofan felt cornered because Yuhong was fighting seriously. But then, he gained strength from his wooden stick when his blood touched the stick. A black mist emerged from his stick and attacked Yuhong until he was blown out of the arena. Xiaofan then emerged victorious in the match, although he also fainted afterward. Xiaofan's victory also caused an uproar in the Qingyu sect. It was no exception that Xiaofan's brothers had already made a bet. But they were all betting on Yuhong's victory, and only Du Bishu was betting on Xiaofan because he had believed in his strength long ago. Xiaofan, who has woken up, is now the hope of his fellow students to win the next match. Then Tian Bui and Mrs. Su came and reminded them to always focus and not to be complacent. Xiaofan got excited again when Tian Bui, who always scolded him, was now encouraging him. The next day, Xiaofan will compete against a disciple from the peak of the wind named Peng Cheng. There, Shu Shu came to see Xiaofan and said that he had negotiated with Peng Cheng not to overdo it against Xiaofan. Shu Shu did that so Xiaofan wouldn't expect victory so much as to endanger his safety, like in yesterday's match. Meanwhile, the disciples watching looked down on Xiaofan, believing that he would definitely lose against Peng Cheng. At first, Xiaofan wanted to give up, but then he remembered that he and all the brothers from the same school had worked hard. He was determined not to make Tian Bui and Mrs. Su, who had taught and mentored him and all his brothers in the same school, feel humiliated. He also didn't forget Ling Er, the first person who got him interested in the spiritual world. Peng Cheng had also told Xiaofan to surrender, but it turned out that Xiaofan actually took out his wooden stick, thus making Peng Cheng feel humiliated because Xiaofan fought with a wooden stick. Their match began, and Peng Cheng immediately attacked Xiaofan with full force. This obviously took Xu Shu by surprise because Peng Cheng had broken the agreement. Moreover, Peng Cheng is a user of fire power, so Xu Shu is worried about his safety. At the same time, it turns out that Ling Er is fighting Lu and the boys were seen cheering for the two beautiful girls. Ling Er seemed confident she could defeat Lu if she didn't use her Tianqian sword. Ling Er was also more excited because Qi watched the match and supported her. However, it turned out that the match didn't last long, and Lu came out victorious, because Ling Er didn't focus on the fight and instead was charmed by Qi. At the same time, Xiaofan came to see Tian Bui and surprised him because he was seriously injured. However, Tian Bui was even more surprised because Xiaofan won the match. Not long after, Xiaofan fell unconscious, and after that, Tian Bui realized that Xiaofan had been studying high-level mystical realms without his knowledge. Mrs. Su then explained that Ling Er definitely gave the training to Xiaofan. Hearing this, Tian Bui became angry because Ling Er herself did not compete seriously, and was instead busy with her love. In contrast to Xiaofan, who actually fought desperately for the name of the peak of the Great Bamboo. Mrs. Su could only comfort her husband by saying that Ling Er had indeed grown up. She added that it was fitting that Ling Er had her mate. But Tian Bui didn't care, especially when he found out that Ling Er's crush was a peak disciple of the dragon. Hearing this, Xiaofan, who had regained consciousness, decided to look for Ling Er. There, he saw Ling Er cry for the first time from a broken heart. Ling Er then tells Xiaofan that she hates her father because her father forbade her to meet Qi. Ling Er's father seems to think that the romance between his daughter and Qi will only make her suffer a setback. Ling Er also insists that she is ready to disobey her father to live life with Qi. Meanwhile, Xiaofan could only remain silent and endure his increasingly hurt feelings. The next day, the match between Xiaofan and Lu was held. There was Mrs. Su, who was worried about Xiaofan because his condition had not fully recovered. Meanwhile, Kang Song did not expect Xiaofan would be able to go this far. Xiaofan was still in a daze because of Ling Er's words. In fact, Lu realized that Xiaofan was not focused on their fight. However, Lu was irritated by Xiaofan's words, which seemed to underestimate his current fight. And finally, the battle between the two of them began. They both seemed to be attacking each other. Even though Lu clearly dominated Xiaofan was actually able to put up a fight. Xiaofan starts to get cornered as time passes when Lu starts to get serious about him. At that point in the match, Xiaofan brought out the power from within his wooden stick. The wand emitted a red glow that enveloped his entire body. After that, things actually turned around in Xiaofan's favor. In fact, Lu looked so pressed that she was bleeding from her mouth because she could not match the strength of Xiaofan, who looked like he was possessed by something with glowing red eyes. In that state, Lu finally decided to awaken the true power of her Tianqian sword. The power of Lu's sword then darkens the sky because she will summon thunder and use the divine thunder technique. But that didn't make Xiaofan flinch, especially when Ling Er's words about Qi seemed to be the embers of his current fighting spirit. Xiaofan instead shot toward Lu, who was about to cast her divine thunder technique. However, when he saw Lu's frightened face, he remembered Ling Er's face. There he realized that if he won or lost, he still couldn't get Ling Er back. At the same time, Lu's new divine thunder technique came out and shot toward Xiaofan. Xiaofan chose to stop his attack and prepared to die in the fight, and he was finally blown away after being struck by Lu's divine thunder. With that, Lu came out as the winner of the match, although Lu herself felt that she did not win the match. Tian Bui, who saw this, immediately flew over to catch Xiaofan. Meanwhile, Kang Song congratulates Shui Yu on Lu's victory. Kang Song also praised Shui Yu for having such a talented disciple as Lu. After that, Kang Song seemed to be talking to Dao Xuan about Xiaofan's mysterious power. He adds that Xiaofan's strength is not the result of the training from the Qingyunmen sect. He suspects Xiaofan is practicing evil powers that will harm Qingyunmen sect. As a result, Dao Xuan decided to investigate. Rumors spread widely, saying that Xiaofan used the power of the demonic doctrine. Dao Xuan had already ordered the master to interrogate Xiaofan when he had regained consciousness. Day after day has passed. Xiaofan always seemed to be gloomy because there was nothing he could do at the top of the Great Bamboo without Ling Er's presence. On the other hand, it is shown that Lu's fight against Qi is won by Qi because Lu still feels that she is not the true winner of her fight with Xiaofan. Song Darren finally appeared to meet Xiaofan in the bamboo forest. He feels sorry for Xiaofan's current situation and tries to comfort him, so he doesn't get too sad. The scene then shows Xiaofan being interrogated by Kang Song in front of Dao Xuan and Tian Bui. Kang Song accuses Xiaofan of being a demonic doctrine spy for using a weapon laced with his blood. But Xiaofan denied the accusations and admitted that he had never done this. But with the evidence of Xiaofan's wooden stick, Kang Song could secretly confirm that Xiaofan could use the demonic teaching technique. For that, Xiaofan deserved the death penalty according to the laws of the Qingyu sect. But Tian Bui obviously didn't stay. Still, he stood up to defend his student, causing an argument with Kang Song. Dao Xuan finally stopped the debate and gave an explanation from his point of view. He felt although Xiaofan's weapon aura seemed to have the power of demonic teachings, but some things felt different that it should be taken into account. For that, he couldn't just arbitrarily sentence someone to death before there was really solid evidence. Dao Xuan also advised Kang Song not to be rash in resolving matters. After that, Dao Xuan said that Xiaofan, the fourth top disciple, officially joined the other 3 disciples to investigate the demonic teachings outside the Qingyu sect. The scene then shows Xiaofan, who is about to leave with 3 other students, namely Xu Shu, Lu and Qi. They were about to go on their mission, and this was Xiaofan's first time using his wooden stick as a tool to fly. They finally arrived at Haiying City, which was famous as a prosperous city. The 4 of them entered the city and found the bustling city life. They looked amazed when they saw things that were not in the Qingyu sect. Xu Shu then invited his 3 other colleagues to rest at a restaurant called Shanghai Pavilion, which is a famous place in Haiying City. Xu Shu then ordered the most delicious food at the restaurant. Apparently, he often went down the mountain secretly and visited this restaurant. Not long after, the food came and they immediately ate the food. Not only that, they were served the main course called clear fish soup, and Xiaofan was amazed and curious when he tasted it. The waiter then explained to him that the dish was made of fresh fish cooked with selected spices. However, suddenly appeared the figure of a beautiful girl named Biyao who rebutted the waiter's explanation curtly. Biyao said that the fish came from far away, where delivery could take up to 2 weeks. She also suspected that the fish could be rotten fish. But the waiter again explained that if the fish were successfully cultivated in the Qingyunmen sect, they didn't need to order fish from far away. Biyao continued to underestimate the Qingyunmen sect, which could only cultivate fish. This immediately made Lu get emotional. But then the servant interrupted them both, and Biyao left after being reprimanded by someone. Finally, they decided to stay one night in Haiying City before continuing their journey. When Xiaofan was about to sleep, Lu came to see him and asked about their fight the other day. Because the fight was so memorable for Lu, who brought out all her strength. She also asked the reason why Xiaofan lost to her even though he could win the fight. But Xiaofan was reluctant to comment on the fight. He argues that Lu is stronger than him, so she can win the fight. Finally, Lu said goodbye after hearing Xiaofan's answer. The scene then shows Xiaofan having a bad dream. Xiaofan felt suffocated by himself and it suddenly woke him up. Not being able to sleep anymore, he decided to go around the Shanghai Pavilion and meet Biyao, who was enjoying the night. He then reprimanded Biyao for picking flowers in the garden. He thought that Biyao's actions had hurt the flowers she picked. But Biyao looked exasperated by Xiaofan's awkward attitude in front of her. She even laughed at Xiaofan, who said that the flower she picked was shedding tears. Then Biyao told Xiaofan to choose who was prettier between flowers and her. Xiaofan shyly replied that Biyao was prettier. After that, he introduced himself to Biyao. But Biyao again teased Xiaofan by saying that he is just like a jerk who likes to compliment her beauty. As a result, Xiaofan left Biyao out of irritation by her words. On the other hand, Biyao was in awe of Xiaofan, who was innocent, honest, and cherished a life like a flower. When Biyao was pondering Xiaofan's words about flowers that can cry, there came a veiled woman named Yi. The woman said that the 4 people were indeed people from the Qingyu sect. Biyao then showed Yi the flowers she had picked. Then she explained that the flower always blooms at night, thus reminding Yi of Biyao's late mother. But Biyao immediately cut Yi's words because she still felt sad about her mother's departure. Moreover, Biyao did not feel affection, even though she still had a father who was the leader of the sect. She also felt she did not deserve to inherit her late mother's heirloom weapon. Biyao chose to be alone to calm herself down, but then Yi reminded her to prepare to head to Kongsang Mountain to carry out her mission. The scene then changed and showed Xiaofan and his colleagues, who also went to Kongsang Mountain, which used to be a gathering place for devils. But before they entered the cave on Kongsang Mountain, they would wait for the disciples from Fenshang Valley and Tianyin Temple to then enter the cave together. Soon after, an army of blood-sucking bats appeared that blocked Xiaofan and his company's journey. While struggling to deal with the bats' attack, suddenly a voice from another student told Xiaofan and his companions to turn on the light. He then took out his champion prize mirror and emitted light from the mirror. So the blood-sucking bats flew away because they were hated by the bright light. They then met with 4 other students. 2 disciples were from Tianyin Temple, Fa Zhang and Fa Shan. The other 2 were from Fenshang Valley, Lu Zi and Yanhong. They planned to enter the cave soon because it would be better if the mission went straight ahead. With the existence of blood-sucking bats, it proved that the demonic doctrine was still in the cave. Fa Shang seemed to be talking to Xiaofan, but Xiaofan wasn't very open about it because he remembered that Puqi was also from Tianyin Temple. Suddenly, Lu felt a suspicious movement. Apparently, the movement came from the demonic doctrine mages who restrained Xiufan's party from entering the cave deeper. The two mages were men named Yigu and Zhang Xiaofan, and they were subordinates of Boss Nian, who was a higher up in the blood-refining Alia. Boss Nian seemed to be preparing to cast his technique and said he would not let the sect disciples out of the cave to report to Dao Xuan. And the battle between the sect disciples against Boss Nian and his subordinates ensued. But then Xiufan separated from the group and fought Lao San alone. Lao San immediately moved behind Xiufan to suck his blood. Luckily, the desperate Xiufan got the strength to grab his wooden stick and immediately stabbed Lao San with his wooden stick. On the other hand, Boss Nian and Yigu looked suspiciously at Lao San, who didn't come back even though he was only fighting Xiufan alone. Yigu decided to check Lao San's condition, but he was immediately shocked when he saw Lao San bled to death because he was sucked in by Xiufan's stick. Boss Nian then ordered Yigu to retreat due to being outnumbered. Meanwhile, Xiufan was confused by Yigu's words before leaving because he said that Xiufan used the blood-sucking method. He then instructs the disciples to immediately chase after the mages of the demonic teachings. He emphasized that no one should be separated again. They finally arrived at the forbidden area of the blood purification hall, the Deadly Abyss. He again instructed them to wait a moment because the place was very dangerous. Sure enough, another attack appeared from the demonic doctrine mages. This time, the demonic doctrine mages that appeared were named Lin Feng and Xiu Zhu, while Boss Nian and Yigu also appeared again. Then another demonic doctrine mage appeared, a woman armed with a whip named Mrs. Mei Mao. They all look happy because they will again suck the blood of spiritual practitioners. Without waiting long, their battle began. Xiufan and the company seemed to be separated and even almost attacked each other due to the mist created by Lin Feng. When Xiufan managed to attack Yigu, he explained that Xiufan's attack method was different. Lu then comes and helps Xiufan against Yigu and Boss Nian. While Qi seemed to be fighting against Mrs. Mei Mao, Lin Feng came and told her to help Boss Nian. While fighting Boss Nian, Lu was hit from behind by Mrs. Mei Mao. She was instantly shackled in her whip, and her blood was about to be sucked out by her. Then Xiufan immediately ran to save Lu. However, the first season of the anime ends here. Will Xiufan be able to release Lu's shackles, then manage to quell the demonic doctrine magicians in Kongsang Mountain Cave? Find out the continuation in the next season.